across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We go to our next great guest. His name is Daniel Berke. He's a director, UK Lawyers for Israel. Daniel, how are you?
Very good. It's always a pleasure to be on this show, Jonathan.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Daniel. And first of all, may I say, I cannot believe that you guys are... I can't believe we're in a situation where Sir Keir Starmer is rewarding terrorism by being willing to recognise the Palestinian State of Israel when 50 plus hostages are still being held in captivity by Hamas, that we know the area of Gaza is controlled by Iranian state terrorist Hamas, that we know that the people in Gaza are still saying there will be more October 7th to come, and put all the conditions put on Israel to stop any fighting, but Sir Keir Starmer seemingly putting none on Hamas. And now we've got this story that lawyers and peers of the House of Lords, around 40 of them, have come out and said to Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, that Sir Keir Starmer could be in breach of international law. Just to quickly quote the letter, if you don't mind, Daniel, it says here, "We call on you," this is Lord Hermer, "to advise Sir Keir Starmer that this would be contrary to international law. You are on the record, Lord Hermer, as saying that a commitment to international law goes absolutely to the heart of this government and its approach to foreign policy. You, Lord Hermer, have said it's a selective pick-and-mix approach of international law will lead to its disintegration, and that the criteria set out in international law should be manipulated for reasons of political expedience. Accordingly, we expect you to demonstrate this commitment by explaining to the public and to the government that recognition of Palestine would be contrary to the principles governing recognition of states in international law. We look forward to your response." I mean, how on earth, first of all, can we recognise a state that has no borders?
I mean, it's chilling, isn't it? I agree with Emily Damari, the joint Israeli-British citizen who was held hostage by Hamas in a cage in a tunnel for 471 days, that the Prime Minister is not standing on the right side of history, and that this is not diplomacy and it's a moral failure. And insofar as you rightly say, it rewards terrorism and it will undoubtedly extend this war, it's a moral failure, but it's certainly also a legal failure, and it shows contempt for international law. And that's why these 43 peers, including some of really the most eminent legal minds, have written to the Attorney General to express those concerns. The proposal is illegal, and it would be a breach of the Montevideo Convention of 1933. And that sets out the criteria for statehood, and there's really four things that are needed: defined territory, effective government, a permanent population, and the capacity to enter into foreign relations. And none of these are met.
Yeah.
Is there an effective government? Well, Abbas is now 20 years into his 4-year term. Who would rule this new state? Would it be Fatah, who rule Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank? Would they be able to govern with Hamas? And we have to bear in mind that Hamas, in 2005, threw Fatah members off rooftops, which is an effective election campaign strategy, but not really what you'd expect from a legitimate state. In 20 years, Gazans and their government did not create a land. They built terror tunnels. They built down instead of up. They built a terror base from which to kill Jewish children instead of a future for their own. And the West Bank areas under the Palestinian Authority is entirely reliant on international aid and utterly corrupt. They're not able to effectively govern. There's been no attempt to build a state. And bear in mind, Israel was built by Holocaust survivors, pioneer farmers, and Jews expelled from Arab lands, and in 80 years has become one of the highest educated, innovative, and advanced countries in the world. The Palestinians, with all the monetary aid they receive, have built nothing. And every attempt to create a two-state solution to date has been rejected by successive Palestinian leaders. Can Hamas members, one of the criteria is to enter into foreign relations, a proscribed terrorist organisation, really enter into foreign relations and set up embassies? That makes, Jonathan, a mockery of terrorism laws. And then perhaps the most important question is this: define territory. What will that territory be? We often hear talk of 67 borders or pre-67 borders and the Green Line. There is no such thing as 67 borders. They have never existed under international law. It's a myth. The Green Line was simply a map, a line drawn on a map in green showing where the fighting stopped in 1948. And that's not how borders are defined under international law. It's a myth. Questions need to be addressed. What would happen to the main settlement blocks, Ariel, Malaya Dumim? What would happen to Gush Etzion in the West Bank, which was purchased in the 1930s from absent Turkish landowners? It was then attacked by Arabs with past echoes of October the 7th, when the population was wiped out in another orgy of rape and murder. Will Jews be forcibly removed under Starmer's plan from those areas? And they're not going to go willingly after what happened last time Jews were removed from Gaza. Starmer doesn't address what would happen to the Judean foothills. They are so militarily strategic that no Israeli leader will ever give those up. But Keir Starmer doesn't need to concern himself with any of those critical details, because in reality they can only be addressed by direct negotiations involving Israel. He doesn't need to worry about it because this is clearly performative.
Can I just say, Daniel, what you've said there is so eloquently and beautifully put, and I get so enraged when I look at other media channels that are now so quick to want to condemn and paint Israel as the perpetrator of crimes. And yes, there are horrific images coming out of Gaza. No one wants women and children to be starving. But people need to remember, number one, who started this war? Hamas, on October the 7th, 2023. Number two, we've literally got video footage of Hamas taking aid trucks as under their control, so they can continue to control the population of Gaza by choosing who and when to give aid to, whilst their leaders are living in Qatari luxury penthouse with their billions of dollars of foreign aid that have been given, not spent, as you say, on building new housing or building what could be an amazing port for that area of the world and become an Abu Dhabi, essentially, of the Middle East in itself. And instead have been investing in weapons, investing in tunnels, investing in propaganda to poison the minds of the Gazan people. And I get so infuriated when people like yourself are almost like, you know, it's like you have to fight for airtime to exist, and straight away it's like, oh, but do you want to condemn Netanyahu and condemn Israel? And we don't, and that's why sorry to listeners, I let you have the space and the time to point out what I think are very legitimate, serious questions that need to be discussed. And remember that Sir Keir Starmer has not answered a single one of those.
And let me, and I'm very grateful for that space to talk, because you know what we're seeking, it's not special treatment, it's simply the fair and accurate application of international law. And our Prime Minister, he spoke of, he said there was an inalienable right of the Palestinians to a state. I think inalienable right is actually a quote from Monty Python, and it's just about as legally accurate. There is no inalienable right based on membership, whether real or imagined, of a people. Or the Kurds, the Yazidis, the Balochs would have their own lands. I've not heard him advocate for any of those one. But again, he doesn't need to worry about legal accuracy, because this is performative virtue signalling, something which he has a history of. It's also something else, though, Jonathan. Starmer, Macron, they're behaving like precisely the people they profess to hate. 19th century white European imperialists trying to carve up an area of the world where they're simply not wanted.
I think that is so beautifully put. And I see Mark Carney's now added himself to the list as well. This progressive alliance that seems to be built between France, Canada and Britain under the leaders Macron, Starmer and Carney. I mean, just thank God, shall we say, for the United States of America, who are being extremely robust. Secretary Rubio and even President Trump himself making it very clear that they will not support any resolution at the United Nations in September. Does that give you some hope that whilst the US is holding out, that it will keep Starmer and co in line?
Whether or not it keeps them in line remains to be seen. I'm pleased that the US is supporting international law as it should be applied. It is encouraging that Israel isn't alone on this, and no doubt there are many, many people, 43 members of the House of Lords, many very, very eminent lawyers, including, for example, Lord Pannick, whom the government have instructed repeatedly on various matters. When they're telling you that you've got the law completely wrong, is worth listening. And It's worrying when a country like Britain, which has always prided itself on its adherence to the rule of law, when our own Prime Minister will trample over it. So yes, the support of the US has been encouraging. The reality is nothing is going to happen without direct negotiations with Israel, and that is really some distance away. Israel obviously is going to want to fulfill its war aims, and I cannot see there being any serious negotiations until Hamas are out of power and whatever happens in the day after has been properly implemented, probably with Abraham Accord countries who will have a major role in this. And it's the opinions of those countries that I think Israel is going to be far more concerned about than that of Britain.
Do you think that in this country we seem to have just, or certainly certain elements of the media are no longer just actually reminding the British public of how important and strategic as an ally Israel is to this country? Not only is it the only democracy in the Middle East, so whilst those people who want to complain about Benjamin Netanyahu, and there may be some very legitimate concerns there, the fact is that Benjamin Netanyahu will actually face an election, and if he is found to have broken any rules or laws, he has already gone to court before. So at least there's actually accountability structures in Israel, unlike in other parts of the world. The IDF is an actual military force, not terrorists covering themselves in the clothing of the civilian population and using the civilian population as human shields and hiding behind schools and hospitals, as well as in people's houses to store weapons. And then on top of that, the fact that people forget that Israel literally has to fight in order to survive. Hamas have literally said in their doctrine that their aim is to obliterate every Jew out off the face of the earth and to end the state of Israel, alongside Iran, who are obviously financially backing them, alongside Hezbollah, who have obviously had to face the Israelis' wrath, and rightly so, and well done to the Israeli military on that front. Do you think people just are quick to forget the history here?
Well, it's not merely a case of forgetting it, it's deliberate and willful ignorance of it. Netanyahu is a red herring. He's a controversial figure. I think he's somebody that is loved by some, hated by others. My pet dog Rocky could be in charge of Israel and it would still be just as hated. A number of mainstream news channels have deliberately blocked experts on Israel, including colleagues of mine from UK Lawyers for Israel, including senior military experts such as Colonel Richard Kemp, who has more or less lived in Israel since October the 9th and has spent a lot of time in Gaza. I was fortunate to go into Gaza with a number of military experts in September, and that included General Sir John McCall, one of the most senior British officers of our time. It included the former SAS hero Chris Ryan. They got it. They really, understood the challenges that Israel's facing, and they also understood quite how violent and dangerous groups like Hamas are and how opposed they are, not just to Israel. Israel is simply the outpost, but to the Western way of life. And there really is a willful ignorance over that. And that's something that we face at our peril. I know many of your viewers will have watched the recent 7/7 documentary. I also remember when the Manchester Arena bomb happened, and the overwhelming feeling in Manchester was one of trying to express love and togetherness and unity. And I remember walking through thinking, you've no idea what's coming. I've lived in Israel during the Second Intifada, and when everyone got on a bus or went in a cafe, you couldn't relax. You're always looking around to see what's happening. And Israel has been fighting that enemy on its doorstep for a long time, supported by powers such as Iran. And I think really in Europe we do need to wake up to a threat and realise that Israel is the front line of this battle, but we are by no means safe.
Daniel Berke there, Director of UK Lawyers for Israel, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your amazing expertise. And let's see what happens with that pressure that's now been put on Lord Hermer, Sir Keir Starmer's best friend, let's not forget, and whether or not there will be a potential breach of international law with the very test that Daniel has set out.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.